Before we get started, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to Headline USA, and share this news with your community. Thank you. And if you want notifications on when new videos are posted to our YouTube channel, click on the bell on the subscribe button to get those sent to you. Now let's move on with this week's briefing. Starting us off, we have an article from Ken Silva about Orrin Ruth, the son of Ryan Ruth that we talked about last week. The news about Orrin comes ahead of his scheduled sentencing this past Thursday after pleading guilty to one count of possessing child pornography back in January of this year. The latest development being that Ruth's lawyers have filed a motion to withdraw last Tuesday after a meeting with him. Ruth's lawyers claim that they believe no meaningful communication can be had with him on their part and that their representation of him would be pointless. Orrin, pictured here, who shares the same 1,000-yard stare as his father, reportedly is questioning the effectiveness of his counsel. With the latest development, Ruth's scheduled sentencing has been delayed. Read more about this story on HeadlineUSA.com and let us know in the comments what you think about Ruth's claim. Was he right to be upset about the results of his guilty plea? Or did his counsel decide to separate themselves from a difficult client? I, for one, find the timing of Orrin's investigation and arrest a bit suspicious, but I want to hear from you about this in the comments. Next, we have our second story from Ken Silva about the Ruth family. This one being about a judge's denial of a dismissal of charges based on Second Amendment grounds in Ryan Ruth's case. Ryan Ruth, the alleged would-be Trump assassin, and his counsel filed a motion to dismiss based on an argument that the charges Ruth received for illegally possessing a firearm as a felon and another for the obliterated serial number on the rifle he's claimed to have had, on the basis that the charges are unconstitutional. The interesting claim from Ruth's attorneys is that charges placed on any U.S. citizen must be consistent with the nation's historical tradition on firearms regulation. According to the attorneys here, before 1961 there is no historical precedent in America for prohibiting firearms possession by convicted felons. Judge Cannon, who's pictured here, denied this motion last Thursday, citing an 11th Circuit Appeals Court precedent. Although it doesn't say in the article why or how this precedent applies, there have been other cases, like the one of an illegal immigrant who had charges dismissed that were based on precedent about British loyalists, all the way back in the days of the Revolutionary War, not being allowed to possess firearms. Question for all of you: since when does precedent from the 11th Circuit Court amend the Constitution? Join the discussion with us on X and share your thoughts about this important story about the Second Amendment and the Constitution. In our third story this week, the ATF is being sued for killing the executive director of the Bill and Hillary Clinton National Airport in a pre-dawn raid back in March of 2024. The raid, in which ATF agents who were conveniently not wearing body cameras, resulted in the death of Brian Milanowski, who ATF agents claim was shot after he fired at them, injuring one. An affidavit released post-shooting states that Milanowski had bought over 150 guns between May of 2021 and February of 2024, and resold many without a dealer's license. However, in his wife's lawsuit, it's claimed that Milanowski would only be required to have a Federal Firearms License, or FFL, as it's known, if selling firearms was the primary source of his income. They also state that this cannot be the case because Milanowski was making over $260,000 as the director of the Little Rock Airport at the time, making it unlikely that firearms sales were his principal livelihood. Ken Silva also brings up in the article that Milanowski's wife was detained for hours by the ATF after her husband, who's pictured here, was killed, and she was heard pleading and weeping for her deceased husband. The agents named in the lawsuit are Timothy Bowles, Troy Dillard, Clayton Merrill, Tyler Cowart, Matthew Sprinkles, not to be confused with Matthew Jimmies, James Bass, Shannon Hicks, and Amy Ness. Also named were local cops and ATF task force members Michael Gibbons and Chris Griggs. There, I just wanted to say their names on record. And also, I wonder if the local police were required to have their body cameras on during this raid. Is this another example of why you shouldn't work for the Clintons? What's the overall body count up to now? You can leave your thoughts about this on the comments section of this video on YouTube. And lastly, this week we have an article from Headline USA's Jose Nino, who writes about Candace Owens' claims that Harvey Weinstein is innocent. As you may suspect, there has been considerable backlash to this claim, as the rare and unusual publicly released interview of Weinstein has been released, while he's still in active trial. Owens states during the interview that she believes that Weinstein was wrongfully convicted and was targeted as a scapegoat for the #MeToo movement. Owens has been very vocal on her thoughts about the prior conviction of Weinstein that was overturned in a state appeals court last year. Also noted in the article is a response from media figure Nick Fuentes, who states, Candace Owens is currently trying to rehabilitate a convicted Jewish Hollywood sex criminal. Yes, Fuentes has to throw that Jewish part in there because it's part of his shtick. Is Fuentes just mad because he never made it to the casting couch, despite his petite frame and luscious curls? And do you think Candace will now have a better shot at landing some movie roles? Sound off about this and other stories that can be delivered to your email inbox by subscribing for free on headlineusa.com. And now that you've been briefed, go and have a great week.